Welcome to the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope this podcast speaks to you, and if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Hey everybody, this is Today is My Favorite Day podcast. This is Sam.
Hello.
I'm Dave. And the question we have for you today is, why do we need fathers? And it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Coming up on Father's Day. But you got a bunch of stuff.
I have a bunch of stuff. I have another question for you, though. What do you call cheese that's not yours?
I don't know.
Nacho cheese.
Oh, there we go. And a Father's Day joke for that.
Father's Day joke, bad dad joke. I got a ton of those, by the way. We could spend all day doing some bad dad.
We want to do that right now.
Yeah. Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
I don't know why.
He was outstanding in his field.
In his field.
Yes. Wait, where's the drummer at? How do you organize a space party?
I don't know. How do you organize a space party?
Plan it.
Oh, I like that. That's a good dad joke.
Why don't skeletons fight each other?
Why?
They don't have the guts.
They don't have the guts. See, now that's actually a good Father's Day joke.
That's a good Father's Day joke, right?
Now, I know other people are moaning right now.
Yeah, I know.
But that's good. That's why we're doing this.
Yep.
Let's give me one more.
Okay. Why can't you give Elsa a balloon?
Why?
Because she won't let it go.
Oh, my gosh. That's really bad. That's really bad. Okay, so why do we need dads? We do not need fathers for bad jokes.
Bad jokes.
And honestly, I think we do. We need to have laughter, even if people are going to moan at you. There's a reason why I do a joke before I do my sermon every time, and it's more of just kind of letting people I think it lets everybody kind of relax, and they can kind of, with all the stuff that went on during the week, they can listen to a bad dad joke and go, man, you're horrible at giving jokes, but they like it.
And you laugh at yourself.
Self-effacing is a good thing.
I was giving the family a hard time. I can't remember where we were going to go. So I said, hey, I got my sandals, my black socks, and my shorts, but I do need to wear long sleeves because of the vitiligo. Yes. And my wife looked at me and says, don't you dare.
Just to look that bad?
Just to look that bad.
I remember wearing... in the 1980s, you had the fanny packs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that was really in? Mm-hmm. Well, in the 1990s, and really early 1990s.
Yeah.
And the bright pastels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, as my daughter Shayna got older in the late 1990s, I went with her to her school, and I had a fanny pack with these bright pastels on.
Oh, boy.
And embarrassed her pretty badly. She goes, Dad, those are not in. I get that. I get that.
But that's why we have kids, to be able to embarrass them. Grandkids are even better.
Oh, yeah. They're fun.
Yeah.
They
are.
But, so, why do we even need dads? It's kind of a big question in our culture today, because even our government here, it doesn't seem like it shows a lot of respect towards dads, welfare checks, all that kind of stuff. A lot of it has to do with you not having a father in the house. Yeah. And that just doesn't make sense. Other than the destruction of what God put together. Yeah. Obviously, God put together the marriage, the family, to have a father and a mother, and they were to love each other and have children and raise those children up in the ways of the Lord, right? Right. That's a biblical way of looking at that.
Exactly.
And so, why we need dads. I want to read one scripture real quick because we can kind of get into why we think that this is important. This is out of 1 Thessalonians 2:11 and 12. For you know that we dealt with each other, or each of you, as a father deals with his own children. And I was going, what is that? Encouraging, comforting, urging you to live lives worthy of God who calls you into his kingdom and glory. So there were three things I thought was kind of interesting. The encouraging, comforting, and urging them to do excellence, right? Yes. Yep. And so I could kind of see that with dads. Right. Yeah. I mean, with you, what do you think?
The encouraging thing, I think that's a really good topic to look at, and then being able to guide them and direct them into the things of the Lord. But to me, when I think about encouragement, I think about my youngest daughter, 7 years old. So I was working in sales. I made my own schedule. Everybody else on the team were doctors and lawyers. They didn't have time to be a coach. I don't know anything about soccer, but I've got a bunch of little 6-year-olds running around. Sure. And so what do? I mean, there's the ball, and there's
Bumblebee soccer.
Yeah, and they were the bees, is what they were.
Okay.
So
Bumblebee
anyway,
soccer.
And
they buzz around. What that means is they're buzzing around the ball.
And so, but they would miss a kick and fall,
Sure.
and start crying and stuff like that. So the encouragement, but we have to do that with our kids all the way through their lives. We have to be that encourager,
keep on lifting them up,
and keep on lifting them up. And if we continue to do that, then when they do fail, when they do have an issue or something, that they know where they can go to get that encouragement.
Yeah, the lifting up and I thought that was interesting that we get challenged in that, because for a lot of us that may not be a natural thing to do. You in sports, you're pushed to go, and a lot of times the language was not the best in the world as you're being encouraged by your coaches, right?
Yeah.
I know for me, my dad was real big on you can do this. Yeah. And you could be encouraged to do this. For me, I believed my girls could do anything. So I want that in their head that they could do anything. Our grandsons, same thing.
Yeah.
So we do need to be encouragers. And what do we tell someone who that's not a natural thing? Maybe they weren't raised up in a home that was encouraging.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest? A guy who is brought up in more of a harsher environment, how can he be, change that a bit so he could be an encourager, and lift up?
Yeah, that's baby steps.
Okay.
If you're not of that mindset to encouragement can be a rah-rah.
Yes.
Pat people on the back and everything else. And if you didn't have that growing up, if you don't know how to encourage people, I would start with, your child brings home a math paper and they struggle in math, but they got a B. And they usually get C's. Hey, great job. That's a big deal. You make a big deal out of it. You put it on the refrigerator or do whatever you want. But here's the thing. What happens in a lot of scenarios is, you could have done better.
Could have done better, yep.
And that's something that we need to get out of our vocabulary. Yes, I believe you're right. I've always believed my kids could do whatever they want. I have an accountant. I have a lawyer and a radiology person. Yeah. But they followed their dream. They followed their passion. But I encouraged them each step of the way. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that it's a learned technique. My dad always supported me in whatever I did. Now, he worked shift work, so he wasn't always there. Yep. But he was always that, encourager. And unless I was struggling, then it was Romans 8:28. And all things work together for the good. Those who love the Lord, right? But he always encouraged me. Just hang in there. And dads, if you're struggling with a child who is struggling at home, just hang in there. Hey, I got your back. What can I do for you? Yeah. It's the baby steps. Ask your child will tell you what they need from you.
Well, and the voice of a male does make a difference. I know that even in our church, some of the teachers are saying, when we have a male back there, the kids just act differently. Yeah. They respond differently, and I think it's kind of a naturally innate thing that the male in the family needs to be that encourager, and also encouraging them to say, hey, you got to respect and love the people that are here with you. So that would be the second. You got the encouraging, but the comforting side is sometimes difficult. My dad was a military guy, and sometimes his comforting was not so much, oh, yeah, let's put a Band-Aid on. That was for mom. It was more like, get up, let's go.
Yeah, rub some dirt in it, go.
Yeah. You can grind it out. I remember when I was really young and we were going up in the Sierra Mountains, and back then the backpacks were real heavy and stuff. I remember I was just dying. All of us were. My dad's just going, keep moving. Yeah. I went, you know what? If we don't keep moving, we're going to be stuck on the side of this mountain anyway. Yeah. I got it at the end, but boy, did I not like him at that moment, because there wasn't the I understand, you're okay. Yeah. It was the kick in the butt and let's get going. And sometimes we need that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Sometimes we do need to be told, you got to grind it, man. It's time to go. But also we need to be able to, if your son or daughter comes home, I know of a scenario, because this happened with a family I know long ago, and there was a broken heart that took place. Oh my! And the parent just basically said, you don't know what pain really is. Oh. And that was like, I know your hurt's still there, but that doesn't really work at this situation. I think we have to put some empathy in there as well. And there's also, you got to get up and get going again. Right. You got to live. This is how we learn. But at first, I think the arm around somebody would probably be a good thing. So, dads, that's not a natural thing.
It's not. It's not.
You know?
For most men, it's not. You know, the comfort side of it in dealing with students like I did for a little while, and you have the broken heart. You have the I really thought I did really well on this test, and I didn't. And so there's an element to that, dads, that you really have to really buy into when it comes to comforting your children, and be encouraging, and that's where, you know, I think sometimes the two go hand in hand, because if we're not an encourager, it's going to be tough for us to comfort. It's going to be a sympathy thing, not an empathy thing.
Not an empathy thing. And I think that for you, you're our pastor of prayer, of taking care of people, of men that are struggling too, right? And so when I think that one thing we could show some guys, and I think you do a good job of that, is when someone's down, you're there, you're going to be there for them. And it's not like, you know, here's a trophy that you can, you're not doing that. It's about, hey, we're here, we're going to pray for you, and we're going to move forward, right? And I really appreciate that of you, because, you know, you are a dad to some of the dads in our church, you know. Obviously.
I'm old enough to be.
And that's not a bad thing.
And the thing is that in those situations, in the encouragement and the comforting situations, dads, this is where you can show the heart of Christ.
Yes.
And the discipline of God.
Yes.
You know, because so, you know, little Sally didn't do as well as she thought she was going to do on the test. So if you know that little Sally didn't study the way she should have, then there's a way to be encouraging, to have the empathy, but say, okay, honey, the next time
let's do it differently.
Let's do it differently. Let's study differently.
Absolutely.
Let's work together differently.
Absolutely.
So,
and there's a way we're saying it too.
Yeah.
Right? You could say, like you were saying, let's try a different way of doing it, or, you know what, you're going to do it differently. This is how it's going to be, and this is what we're going to do. Well, there's
no buy-in for one.
Correct. Yeah. And so, but that's a challenge for all of us. I want to do a little bit of an encouragement before we get into this other part of urging our kids to live worthy. I want to encourage the guys that watch this. Thank you for being providers. Thank you for being the one that's working your rear end off for your family, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
A lot of times
with the economy the way it is,
you're working.
They're out there. Yes,
and you're doing it, and we appreciate that you're doing that. Your family may not know that or see that, and they may not even be saying it.
Right.
But we're saying it.
Yes, we appreciate it.
That you're doing your job.
It's an example. It is the example of Christ's love when you are out there. Look,
working it, man. Working it.
We're pastors, okay? But we have to work.
Oh yeah.
In everything we do that's pleasing to God.
Yeah.
And so
that's the business end of it.
That's the business end of it, right? So. And so whatever your job is, you're called to do that. So there's no difference in the calling.
No
difference in the calling.
And that's the whole thing, is that a lot of guys don't get that attaboy on the, you know, of working your rear end off for your family. You know, we want to be able to say, you know, you're doing God's work when you're doing that. You're being a provider and a protector.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so we want to, you know, I know some guys go, I'm protecting, I'm doing what I can for my family. Awesome.
Yep.
That's right. I mean,
it is.
We want to say that's awesome, and you should do this for yourself. It's okay to do that, even if no one else is doing it. We're going to do that for you.
We'll do that for you. Yeah.
But there's also another, and let's not do it a but, an and. There's something you could add on to this, and we were talking about that encourager. So now you're the provider and the protector, but you could also add that into that. You're the encourager, and you're the one that can lift up the people in your family.
Well, and if you become your children's and your spouse's greatest cheerleader, you will see a change in attitude. You know, you will see a change. Look at the difference. I mean, you go to every sporting event that you can with your grandkids, right?
Oh yeah.
And so there's that male influence encouraging, cheerleading.
Yeah, the guys are saying they can hear my voice
all the way across. Right? Yeah, I know. I get that too. But as you're, and it doesn't matter what the scenario is, whether it's a sports event, whether it's a broken heart, whether it's, you know, whatever it is, a concert or whatever. When the dads show up, look, the kids always know mom's going to be there for the most part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They pretty much know. But when dads show up, when they know dad's been working and don't know if he's going to be there on
Yep,
time, and this,
big deal.
and you show up, it is a huge deal. And we pat you on the back for it, because we know that you have got to really adjust your schedule and do things to get there. So I really encourage you.
And then the third thing on this verse that we're reading out of 1 Thessalonians 2, 11 and 12, it says, then urging you to live lives, urging your kids to live lives worthy of God, who calls you into his kingdom and glory. And that's hard when we maybe weren't trained to do that from our own dads maybe. Now, I was fortunate. I was blessed. So I'm not comparing, because my dad wasn't perfect, but my dad did want to live a life pleasing to the Lord. He became my prayer partner. He became the person that I talked with a lot. He gave me all these bad dad jokes at first. That's how I started doing all that. My brother and I hiked all over the Sierras with him, biked down Highway 1 in California. He was more of a dad on that end than I ever was. I mean, he did more than I could ever do. Yeah. But at the same token, some of us you don't have the time to do all that stuff too. He was unique on that. If there was a wish for me, I wish I got to do more of that. But I had girls, and we did different things with the girls. I got to do more with the boys, grandsons. Shayna, my oldest, did all the sports stuff, so I got to do. I got to kind of live all that with her. And it was a lot of fun. But as far as dads go, on the encouraging of being that person that's saying, hey, you could be all you can be in Jesus. That's something that we have to be able to show it. And I know the girls, for me, one thing they said is that we know that you'll always come and ask for forgiveness if you said something or did something that was not, they always kind of joked, said I didn't do a whole lot of horrible things, but I knew it wasn't right, so I would go to them and ask for forgiveness. And that was just something that they were used to seeing. And that, I think that's also loving our wives. I think wouldn't you say that's kind of a big? It is.
It's a big portion of
show
being
the kids.
To show the kids. The kids need to see that love and that concern and that togetherness, that working together. I mean, in my scenario, my dad worked shift work. My mom was a nurse, and so she worked. But now that I think about it, whenever we got home from school or where, somebody was there. And I never even thought about that. I know they both worked, but we never walked home to a babysitter or anything like that. And they just did everything they could. Growing up in the 60s and early 70s, I graduated in 71, and I look back at those times, and wages were
teeny.
And as a journeyman electrician, my dad in the early 60s was making like $2 an hour.
Crazy.
But they were able to afford to do things. I had 4 sisters growing up, and they tried to do as much as they could. My dad never drove. He never got his driver's license in the States.
Wow.
Until he was, I want to say 65. He was in his 60s. He was working at the power plant or the coal mine, and it dawned on them that when he presented his ID, that it wasn't a driver's license. They just assumed it was a driver's license. It was a valid ID.
Okay.
And then so they were doing an audit, and it's like, Frank, you need a driver's license. Worst thing in the world, folks. If your dad doesn't drive until he's 65, don't ride with him. It's worse than riding with a teenager teaching a teenager to drive. Anyway, but I always knew he had my back. I always knew he was there to support me. It didn't matter the shift work that he worked, and he always did what he needed to do to provide for my family.
Yeah, my dad was a provider of our family. I always appreciated that. And later, like I said, became more of the spiritual mentor for me. My sister, Dawn, her husband, they've been married forever, it seems like, and Ken, great provider for his family. I mean, he took care of his family, had him in church. He was a spiritual leader. My sister Denise, Dale, Denise went through, some difficult times in her first marriages, but met Dale and her have been married a long time, and Dale's just been a major encourager to her. And I know she has been to him, but they're going to church and they're connecting spiritually that way. Tanya and I met in church. And for me, it's always been about how do I encourage her in her spiritual walk,
Right.
and how do I encourage her to be the best she could be at whatever it is that she's going to do, and love her well,
Right.
and as best I can, right? And we're all going to make, we're bozo guys, so we can make mistakes that way. But I think that when we show that side of ourselves to our kids, there's something about that the kids, see that's different, and I think that they get excited. I think there's comfort in that.
Yep.
And then what happens and this is the big thing, what happens through a divorce, and how do you continue to be the father in that? I haven't gone through that. Now you've been
I've been through that.
And so what
hard.
did you do?
It
Because I want you to encourage some of our guys who have been in divorces or going through them, and how do you still be dad in the midst of all that?
Yeah, that's tough. And I would encourage you this way. Do not change what you were doing for the children. You have to be there for them. If you were coaching their soccer team, you have to continue to do that. If you were going to all of the school events, you have to continue to do that. Here's what happens, and I've seen it time and time again. The divorce happens, and dad and mom, they get different relationships and stuff like that, and dad does not pay the attention that he was, and that's where the hurt comes. That's where you have to continue to pay attention, and you probably need to go a little bit overboard when it comes to the children, and never, ever, ever argue with your ex-spouse in front of the kids. Don't do it. If your spouse is one of those that has to bring it up like that, you need to learn to walk away and not get triggered.
And I've heard this from others too, and we experienced this with our daughter who went through the divorce world, and not talk poorly about the other spouse.
You can't.
With the kids. If you start doing that, it becomes a mess. I know as grandparents, we didn't do that. We made sure to speak highly, and pray for dad, and do that because that's what we have to do. And I think that the more we show that, the better it is for dad, because the kids need dad no matter what.
They do. They need you, so if they're teenagers, they need you, but you're going to be stupid until they're 25.
Yes.
That's just
I did that to my dad. Yep.
Me too. Yep. And we have a teenager in the house again, and I think that's starting to come across to mom and dad. But stay with it. Just stay with it. If you're struggling with a teenager that just doesn't want to have anything to do with you, whatever, they do want to have something to do with you. They just want you to kind of be in the background, but they need you. They definitely need you.
So what we want to do is today, if you're a guy listening to this or watching this thing, our thing was just to encourage you. Sam, you have a couple more jokes?
I got a couple more jokes.
We're going to finish this with some bad jokes.
Yeah, we're going to finish with a bad joke. What do you call fake spaghetti?
I have no idea.
An impasta.
Did he?
Yeah. Why do math books look so sad?
Why?
They got way too many problems.
And that's true. And you know what? As the world says, there are so many problems. Why worry about them all today?
Right.
We are. This is the end of this podcast.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure you guys know that you're loved. We want to make sure you're loved.
Yep.
And just finish us off how you always do here.
So. One thing before we go, when you get that tie, you get those socks. Love those ties and those socks that you get from your little ones. Yeah. This has been David Towner, Sam McKeown. Today is our favorite day. Live intentionally, be very blessed. We'll see you next week.
Read one more joke to me.
One more joke to you. Okay, and I got to find one here. You want one more joke?
Yeah.
How does the penguin build its house?
How?
It glues together.
He glues it together.
Yeah.
And we end with that.
Yeah. We're out.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD. Today is my favorite day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone, and Dave and Sam are solely responsible for the content of this podcast. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Music is composed and performed by Chuck Falk. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.